we have some big solar shock wave that seems to be headed to the Earth. We have an advanced probe that's in between right now, the Earth and the Sun. It's called Solar Orbiter. It's almost exactly 50% of the distance in between. So it gives us a warning. And it picked up 4 different spikes in the interplanetary magnetic field. So basically 4 pulses of plasma that swept over it. And if you have higher density plasma, the magnetic field will strengthen a little bit. So we picked up 4 of these waves. I reported in a video about the space weather coming in that we had 3 waves, and that was based off of a space weather model released by the UK Met Office. Other groups are saying, hey, we got 2 waves. The Solar Orbiter, which is taking actual observations, picked up 4 waves. Now it's picked up a 5th one, and this one really is like much stronger than the other 4. The other 4 are notable, but not necessarily crazy strong. This 5th wave is like a shock wave. It looks pretty intense, and it hits Solar Orbiter. So very, like almost certainly it's going to hit us in the next couple of days. So that's the new story. We also just had a magnitude 6.6 earthquake off the coast of Papua New Guinea. We're actually on Papua New Guinea. And yeah, to back up really quick with this shock wave, let me add a little bit more to that because I don't want people to freak out. How much geomagnetic storming that's going to trigger is unknown. Based off of the other activity, those 4 waves, which NOAA showed in their space weather model, maybe we'll look at it, just one kind of slow moving coronal mass ejection. They originally came out saying, you know, probably just active conditions. Then they changed it to be, well, conditions will be active to G1. And now their update, at least last night when I checked, was we're likely to have G1 conditions with a possibility of G2 conditions. And when I reported on this right after this activity happened, I think it was on the 3rd of October or the 4th of October, I reported on this. All this stuff left on the 3rd, or at least the 4 waves. I said G1's probably almost certainly going to happen. G2 is likely, and I wouldn't be surprised by G3. So the forecast keeps going up. And they're doing it. It hasn't hit yet, so they are technically ahead of the ball, but it took them a couple of days to kind of like be like, okay, this is something. So, but this new one, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, but probably it's hard to say. It's a big shock wave. I mean, it could be G3 minimum. We'll see. We'll see. Really don't know. No, yeah, don't NOAA. Yeah, just don't know. But I think we're looking now at probably default G2 levels, and then going up from there. We had this magnitude 6.6 earthquake, Papua New Guinea. We also had a magnitude 5.1, I think, Afghanistan, fairly close to where they had the magnitude 6 recently. So there's still activity in Afghanistan. And we have all these comets flying into the inner solar system. We have new images of 3i Atlas from ESA. The first good images of 3i Atlas from the European Space Agency. So we'll give that a look. And also just we're going to talk about the general kind of energetic conditions of our solar system with these comets, with 3i Atlas. We have the full supermoon. That was really precise like last night, but effectively it's right now, like the big full supermoon, meaning the moon is closer. So there's a lot of energetic forces that are coalescing, combining together at this moment in time. And so just wanted to kind of roll through this and create a space where we could talk about this in a more relaxed format. So this is our sun right now. I'll turn myself off really quick. This is going from the 4th of October up to the present moment. We do see this big coronal hole on the front of the sun. That's that black area. That coronal hole there is the one that has been hitting the Earth with its high-speed stream, a negative polarity one, and then just a few days afterwards, more than once now, we've had a very high magnitude earthquake. So the biggest example was we had that coronal hole high-speed stream hit us, and then we had the magnitude 8.8 megaquake off the coast of Kamchatka. We also had magnitude 7 plus something earthquake that occurred after that, the next one that occurred later, and I think it's actually 3 like magnitude 7 plus earthquakes that have ruptured immediately following this high-speed stream impact. So we got it coming back again. It was bigger last rotation, seems to have decreased a little bit, but it is still there. It is still active and alive. And if you're wondering, someone asked, where am I getting this view of the sun? This is a program called HelioViewer. That's why I started the live stream a little late, because I had to load up HelioViewer and get the imagery downloaded and everything and process, and take some time. Especially if you want a 2K graphic like this. I wanted a high quality graphic, but I thought I clicked it to load it up. There it is. Yeah, so I can show you really quick kind of what this looks like. Behind the scenes with Stefan Burns. So we just go to a new layer here. We can turn on our 335 angstrom, I guess. That's the one that it clicked. That's what it wanted. And it'll load it up. And so we see different views of the sun, for example. And I could change this to be 304 angstroms. I could turn the 335 off. And you can blend them together, and you can choose your frame rate and more. So it's a really cool tool, and you can download this by typing in ESA J HelioViewer. So I guess, you know, we honestly have to give a big shout out to the European Space Agency for being the first group to release new images of 3I Atlas from Mars. The first quote unquote, you know, good ones. They're not great in the grand scheme. Like, why wasn't Hubble taking like a new photo of 3I Atlas every single day? Or at least every few days, while it was able to for like 6 to 8 weeks? Why did we only get a single photo from Hubble? Like, we should really be tracking this stuff more qualitatively across time, but I digress. But we also have them to thank for a lot of the Solar Orbiter probe, for example. It's giving us the heads up on this shockwave. That's from the European Space Agency. So thank you to all the Europeans who are doing the good things. You're not shut down. You're not crazy. Sure, Europe has some problems. I love Europe. I've spent a lot of time in Europe. I could definitely live in Europe. I could live in Slovakia so easily. I love Slovakia, Poland, any of those places. So thank you to the Europeans. My heartfelt thanks to all the good people there. But that's the ESA J HelioViewer. You can play around with that if you want, and get imagery of the sun that way. Here is our latest imagery of 3I Atlas as provided by the European Space Agency. And so we see it right here, just traveling across, and it's just slowly going. I wish there was I guess, let's see if I can, I don't like how my hand gets cut off when I'm doing this. All this have to sit offset like this so I can get the full scope there. Yeah. So here it is. We see some stars. This is kind of zoomed in. We'll look at the actual web page that they released for us. But this is basically our best photo video yet of 3I Atlas from Mars. So this is a whole bunch of 5-second exposures that they stack together. And here we also see an even more clear photo. This is like, you know, a GIF right here. But here we see the photo. We see that has that coma, and it's not great, but at least it's something. At least the Europeans didn't take too long to release something. It did take a few days, but it didn't take too long, which is a good thing. It didn't take 2 weeks. We're still waiting on NASA. So we may be waiting like weeks on NASA to release anything. I mean, they did just, you know, the Perseverance rover has that automatic data feed. So, you know, we have to thank NASA for that. But I was thinking about this recently. You know, Elon Musk, love him or hate him, or you're neutral, whatever, doesn't matter. The guy was very smart in terms of making rockets and just standardizing them. So it's like, we're not going to build a one-off and then it's like some delicate work of art and we hope it doesn't explode when we launch it out and there's astronauts going to the moon on it, something like that. It's like, we will really build good rockets if you treat it just like building a car or any other device like an iPhone. Like, through the economy of scale and also by building 1 million of them, for the iPhone, for example, we can figure out everything exactly precise and just standardize it. Why haven't we done that for other things in space? Like, we should have done that for the Voyager probes, which Voyager 1 and 2, which are exploring outside the heliosphere now. We should have just created a standardized design and built 100 of those mofos and shot them off in all directions so we could really understand our environment. Think of how much that would have changed our understanding of our solar system and the cosmos. You do a lot of work to get the initial design. You make it good, but now you have all this equipment and these processes that have been built so you can make more of them, and then you just start cranking them out. Why didn't we do that? Why didn't we make, I mean, there's probably some reason why, and I'm ignorant to it. Why didn't we make like 20 Hubbles and launch them into different parts of the solar system so we can get views from all over? And also so we could track things, like the amount of data coming in would be so much greater. And you would also develop the back-end workflow. You would have an entire industry of people that know how to use the data coming off of these devices. There's like a community around it so you can work together, and over the course of 10, 15, 20 years, it becomes very vibrant, and you're not reliant on that one engineer who was there at the beginning, who's now 85 and has some sort of like cancer, who barely has the energy or time to respond to you, but he's the only one that knows the code to this thing because we only built one, right? It just, yeah, it takes more money, but if we had like built standardized protocols for some of these things like Voyager, or let's say like Hubble, just imagine how much more information and understanding we would have of our solar system. That's something I've been thinking of. And there's probably some good counter arguments, but it just makes sense. And we see, if again, love him or hate him, whatever, Elon Musk, we see the success of SpaceX as a result of him following that protocol. Now there's like 8,000 or 9,000 SpaceX satellites in space. And those rockets are going up all the time and they're landing, and we're not really getting explosions anymore unless you consider Starship, but that's still at the prototype stage. You know, we're learning to build these things so we can just crank them off the assembly line. I feel like that's what we should have done. And it's not too late for us to do that. Just because we haven't done it doesn't mean that we can't do that. We just need some people who see that way and have that vision to maybe enter into positions of power. So yeah, but this is the latest from the ESA. Let me pull up their webpage for you guys. Then we're going to look at the shockwave. And yeah, here we go. So this was released just a couple hours ago. I have to give a shout out to Dobsonian Power. He's been tracking this like crazy. He also does space weather and earthquakes and more. He's a cool dude. I watch his live streams every now and then. And I just woken up and I saw that he was live with an update on this. Now I would have seen it eventually on Twitter, but I basically got the alert pretty instantly because of him. So thanks to Dobsonian Power. And he's still trying to capture images of 3i Atlas now with his backyard telescope. He has this huge honking telescope. I just don't think it's probably possible to get good images of 3i Atlas at this point because of the glare of the sun. We'll talk about that. We'll look in Stellarium at the position of 3i Atlas. But yeah, shout out to him. So the two Mars orbiters that had the closest view of the comet were ExoMars TGO. And this GIF right here is the CASSIS, or the Color and Stereo Surface Imaging System, that gave us this GIF right there. You see it gets kind of complicated right away. It's a slightly fuzzy white dot moving downwards towards the center of the image. And then there's also Mars Express. And they both turned to get images of 3i Atlas. Now, there's this one key thing I kind of want to say here, is that Cassis, we'll call it, could not distinguish the nucleus from the coma because 3i Atlas was too far away, imaging this kilometer-wide nucleus, and it could be bigger. It could be 50 kilometers wide. We don't know the size of it. But imaging this kilometer-wide nucleus would have been as impossible as seeing a mobile phone on the moon from Earth. So that's the thing. That's why this is what it is. It's these devices were not meant to take deep interstellar photos or interplanetary photos of moving objects at high velocity in any good quality. It's just we had the opportunity because of the close approach that it was like, well, this is kind of our last chance to get at least some data. So we'll do it. Don't expect it to be good though. That's why I've been saying good in quotations. Because the last photos we had from Mars, which are from the Perseverance rover, I mean, thanks to the work of Simon and also Astronomy Live, who I talked about in that video, you know, they were able to pull out something, but it was really just confirmation that it's where it's expected to be, which is important information to know that's still in that orbital trajectory. But in terms of it resolving any new features about the Interstellar Object 3I Atlas, it didn't tell us anything new about that. Nor does this, but at least we do see a couple things. We see that it really doesn't have a tail still, even though it's now within the orbit of Mars. Let me go back to our 3I Atlas, zoom in right here, and actually I can punch this. I should be able to make this one bigger right here. Let's do this. Here we go. So here we have it. This is punched in. So yeah, you can see it's low resolution. We understand that. Where's the tail, folks? You know, there's no real tail. We'll go on Twitter. Maybe I'll do that now. And we can just honestly zoom around a little bit and type in Comet A6 Lemon, which is going to be visible. You know, these other comets too are quite significant as well. Look at this, popped right up on my homepage first thing. So let's check out this. Let's check out this photo here. Here's a comparison. This is Comet C2025 A6 Lemon, and we'll turn this right there. Look at the tail on this guy, and we see the evolution of that. So image credits and copyright, Victor Sabet and Julian de Winter. That's what it says in the description behind me. And this is taken over the course of a week. That's what it also says in the description. But check that out. I mean, this tail is super, super, super long. And this is almost certainly going to be visible in the night sky in November. So this is going to be maybe the great comet of 2025. We also have C2025 R2 Swan. It also has a very long tail. It's quite active as well. So yeah, there's a distinct difference between that and this. That's kind of the main point. Like, this is very anomalous. I would say there's more evidence that it's quite a bit bigger than smaller. So some of the initial estimates were like 0.5 kilometers to 1 kilometer in diameter, but I think there's more evidence for it being maybe 5 kilometers across. 10, 15, 20, even up to like 50 kilometers across is kind of the upper estimate, but we really don't know. And that's why getting that data from NASA is going to be so key, because that high-rise data, the specific camera on one of the orbiters, should give us our best view of it. That's at least what we expect. We don't know. These cameras really, again, it's like taking, as they said, a picture of a cell phone on the moon from Earth. So the fact that we got anything is good from this. It's NASA that has the best imaging capability from Mars. And it's still not meant to be doing this, but we hope that it gives us some good imagery. And they have done this before. I think it was back in 2013. There was a comet that did a really close flyby of Mars, and they did the same operation and got some imagery of it from that. So let's talk about this shockwave, though, because this is a big story that we're breaking right now. So, and I know this because I look at all the different data feeds. There's too many, honestly, now for me to look at all the time. It's kind of a problem, but I keep up to date on all this stuff as best as possible. So we have this probe that's orbiting around the solar system. It's Solar Orbiter. And this webpage is linked in the video description if you want to check it out. And we can go down. There's different views of the sun. For example, this is the Earth-facing side of the sun, because right now the Solar Orbiter probe is in front of the Earth, and here we see that. So here's the sun, there's Solar Orbiter, there's the Earth. It's almost exactly perfect right now for space weather forecasting. And it actually is generally useful. When it's on the opposite side of the sun, it allows us to see what sunspots may be rotating in. But it's really useful when it's in this alignment in between the sun and the earth, because it gives us an advance on the type of solar wind structures and solar storms that are sweeping by. So here we have that. And let me line this up for you. Here are those 4 plasma waves. 1, 2, 3, 4, right there, okay? This is our interplanetary magnetic field strength, the total field strength. And so we see that it's hovering around 20 right there. I can, let me go ahead and blow this up for you a bit more. We'll take the image directly, zoom in, because it's probably difficult for you to see. Here we go. Yeah. So here we have our shock waves. It's around 20, and actually I'm going to turn myself off, so watch the cursor. Here's 20 nanotesla, okay? That's a pretty strong solar wind magnetic field, though it is half the distance right now from the Earth to the Sun. So it makes sense that's going to be stronger than the average, which is at Earth about 5. And in fact, right now the solar wind strength is about 10 at Earth. So we are already in elevated conditions. And we'll look at the real-time solar wind. We are starting to see an increase in geomagnetic activity, though we're only at active conditions right now. But here it is 20, then we see this jump. So let's say that's about 20, 23 or so right there. That's going to about 33. That's a 10 nanotesla jump. So that's clearly some sort of wave, a coronal mass ejection, whatever, of plasma headed our way. Then we see this next one there, boom. Pretty similar, not maybe as sharp or sudden, but fairly similar in the magnitude. Here we see that also, and actually that looks like maybe it's 11 nanotesla or so in total increase in the solar wind interplanetary magnetic field strength. This one there, equivalent as well, though each of them slightly lower. This is probably about 31 nanotesla right there for the strength, but it did drop down to even like 18 there very quickly. So oscillating between 20 and 33, you could say, if we want to put that into a range. Look at that. This is definitely different. So this is what has been expected. This is the anomaly right here. Going from 20 up to 48 or so, I mean, that's a massive increase, and then we get this massive drop afterwards. So this is the shock wave. These are like plasma waves. And if I would consider this, here's the analogy. You can consider this like speed bumps, okay? Like you're driving along on a road and you hit some speed bumps and you don't enjoy them, especially when there's 4 in a row and you're like, come on, this is annoying. This though is like hitting a huge pothole. It's like, oh my God, what the heck just happened? And then you look in your rearview mirror and you see the pothole and it's like a gaping chasm that you nearly fell into. You're like, thank God the car was able to roll over that. So this is what we have coming in to hit the Earth pretty soon. Now this just hit solar orbiter, okay? So as you can see, so it's probably going to take a couple days to reach us. But here's the thing, we're going to be in elevated geomagnetic conditions as a result of these waves here, and then that's going to strike us. Maybe we calm down enough afterwards to like regain normal levels, but in general, it takes time for these energies to integrate. And so these are coming in starting today. Like I think we're actually maybe even already being hit by this first one. We'll look at the real-time space weather. It's at least a possibility, but they're coming in within the next 24 hours. We're also fully charged with our radiation belts. So let me show you that because that is also going to enhance this geomagnetic activity. So we can go to our real-time electron flux as provided by the GOES satellites, and we are fully charged up, folks. After that storm, we see here that we bottomed out when we had that storm, the kind of the surprise storm that spiked up to a G3. No one was forecasting that, including myself. I mean, in general, I've been forecasting that we're going to be seeing stronger space weather, solar activity, and perhaps even big earthquakes this fall as a result of all these comets and Interstellar Object 3I Atlas. But in terms of a very specific forecast for that surprise storm that we had at the end of September, I did not put that out there because it was a surprise. It really was kind of unexpected. I think it was because of all the dust and plasma loaded into space in front of the Earth that then increased the solar wind to be stronger than normal. And we'll look at that again too. We're going to go over a lot today. But here we see afterwards, after you get this big solar storm impact, you get a lot of this energy to then move into the plasmasphere because the original plasma that's contained within our magnetic field pushes downwards to the Earth. That's why a lot of people feel these symptoms. You have a massive flow of the most vibrational matter and energy that we know of, basically pushing down to the surface of the planet. And during a really big impact, you can even have what's known as a ground level enhancement. Really wild, like really crazy stuff. You can have, there's a whole wild world that we live in that most people aren't really aware of as it relates to how energetic flux can change on the surface of the planet. You have Miyake events, ground level enhancements. You can have earthquake energies that just erupt out and completely ionize the lower troposphere to a much higher degree. So yeah, it's wild. We're very lucky that that doesn't happen all that often. But now we see that's really gone up. And so what the point is that when we do get these waves to start hitting us, we are going to start to see this precipitate down, just as I described. And as a result, that's going to be a factor in making the storm a little stronger, because you could get an impact, let's say, come in, drop the electron flux, and then another one follow up, and we're already kind of depleted. And so the impact is going to be lesser as a result. But when you get these really strong flows of plasma surrounding the Earth to precipitate down and hit the planet, the ionosphere, they charge it up, strong electric currents, inducing electric currents in the ground surface, that's when things kind of can get a little wild, especially with a strong geomagnetic storm. That's when you can have transmission lines now all of a sudden exceed their voltage thresholds, and there's too big of a difference across the hundreds of kilometers long line, and that causes a transformer to blow out. And now there's a power grid failure, and we see this quite often, especially in the areas like Puerto Rico, just in Cuba, where the power grids are really pretty crap, unfortunately. Where we see these these effects happen. But it can also happen with a really big storm, like in Quebec in 1989. We had a big G5 impact. I think it was Quebec. They had a huge power grid failure for the city as a result of that. So these are very real effects. Here we have our real-time solar wind, and we can see that what I've been calling surprise geomagnetic storm, it lasted nearly 3 days, which is quite long as well. So it was quite bizarre. And we had some weird things happening afterwards as well. So you'll notice these kind of like errant spikes. This is our interplanetary magnetic field strength up top, and then we have our plasma density and our velocity. There's a few areas in here where we just got weird data and don't really know exactly what that is, whether there's a malfunction with the probe or whether it was like very isolated pockets of extreme density differences and therefore magnetic field differences. That's possible. Plasma can form these really discrete structures pretty close together. So it is possible that we had like little very high density plasma pockets follow up behind. And actually, if this hypothesis with the comet R2 Swan loading the solar wind up with dust and plasma in advance of the Earth, which then swept by us, triggering the storm, that could explain that, because perhaps there was a very confined packet of complex dusty plasma that swept by. So that's why we had these kind of weird spikes. That's at least one idea. But now you can see that we've been ramping up. So we did go down to a KP value of 0.67. Very, very low. Field is totally quiet. No aurora or anything from that, unless maybe you're living way up, super high latitude, north or south. But now you can see that we've ramped back up again. Our interplanetary magnetic field was 6. Now it's about 9, but it just recently was 10. And in fact, there's a 1 hour delay here. So anything you see here is about 1 hour early, because this probe is 1% of the distance from the Earth to the Sun. So it gives us a 1 hour heads up. So our interplanetary magnetic field right now is about 10 nanotesla in strength, and it also has this negative BZ, which means it connects nicely to Earth's magnetic field. So 10, -8, right? It's just a small little kind of bucket. It looks like a new one is starting up. Let's go to our 3-day view. Zoom in on that. So this could be the start of this space weather. It looks kind of like that's the case. I think this will probably elevate up a bit more. It's definitely going to elevate up when that shock wave hits us. That's the thing. When that shock wave comes in, this could really, I mean, that it registered as like nearly 30 nanotesla. Yeah, almost basically 30 nanotesla on the solar orbiter probe. And so we could see this spike up beyond 20, maybe even to 30 nanotesla in the next few days. It's possible. It's definitely possible. Density is higher now too. We did just have a period of very low density, which is something that we discussed as it relates to earthquakes. There seems to be a connection. And thankfully we didn't have any big magnitude 7 earthquakes during this time period, but we did just have that magnitude 6.8, 6.6 Papua New Guinea. So yeah, there's like all these factors combining, and I think really the unifying factor is all these comets and Interstellar Object 3I Atlas in our solar system. Let's go, but before we go into that more, let's just quickly look at our earthquake data. And I think we've received some questions, so we'll go talk about those next, the super thanks questions, before I move on to the comets and everything. But we'll do our earthquake really quick. So here we have our latest earthquakes for the past day. And you actually, I don't even have to set this. If we just go down a little bit, there's our 6.6 magnitude earthquake, Papua New Guinea, and right afterwards a 5.1 in Afghanistan. These are the biggest earthquakes that have happened recently. Before covering that though, there just has been a little bit of an uptick of earthquakes across the West Coast just today. So we're seeing these earthquakes up here in Nevada. We've been having earthquakes up near like Midas. We've also been having earthquakes in Idaho on and off. So it's not showing on the 1-day view, but if I switch it to 30 days, we'll see that. And then, so just in general, more earthquake activity through Nevada, and then also a little bit more than normal across California. Let me switch to the 30-day. And we'll do all magnitudes. Well, that's probably too much. We'll do 2.5 and greater. So, and then, yeah, a lot of activity up here. So that's the thing. It's nothing exceptional. It's not a magnitude 6.6 earthquake, but there does seem to be a very slow trend increase in earthquake activity for the western United States. Here's the Idaho location near Stanley. That has died down quite a bit since what it was doing this summer, but there are still some earthquakes there. Here we have the swarm near Midas, where there's a lot of gold mining. You can see that right there. There's Midas. I've never been there, but I do like Nevada. I've been to a few places there. Lovelock, Reno, of course, Las Vegas. Nevada's a cool spot. And then, of course, all our activity along the main faults of San Andreas, and then going up to our Juan de Fuca plate there, the Triple Junction, and the Cascadia subduction zone. So, yeah, the United States has been seeing just very slowly increasing activity. I wouldn't say it's anything to worry about at this moment in time, but that is what's been happening. But now let's go back to our largest earthquake of the day, Papua New Guinea, right here, striking right near the town of Leh. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But as you'll notice, it's right on a fault line. See that fault line going through the red line? Right through that fault line. So that's a big earthquake. So the earthquake activity is continuing. It has not slowed down. We're still getting a lot of earthquakes. This is one of the strongest years for earthquakes ever on record. So, and we still have most of October, November, and December left. So we see with some of these close flybys of comets and stuff, like elevated earthquake activity. Most specifically, I just find, I mean, it's just really, really insane about how Oumuamua, the first interstellar object, performed its perihelion September 9th, 2017, the day before, and perihelion is the closest approach to the sun. The day before that, we had the biggest earthquake in 2017 in magnitude 8.2 in Mexico. And then we also had on September 4th and the 11th, the two biggest solar flares of solar cycle 24, anomalously strong, like incredibly strong. They were double-digit X-class flares, and solar cycle 24 was a weak solar cycle, and it was nearly at the end of the descending phase of that solar cycle. So it was nearly solar minimum. Solar minimum was 2019, 2020. So here you have September 2017, the biggest solar flares of a weak solar cycle, like the weakest in like a century. It doesn't add up. So that is a really clear example of how I think all this interacts. And Oumuamua was an interstellar object that was quite small, did not have a coma or show any cometary behavior. It, didn't have a tail. It was basically just, it seems to be just a space rock of some sort. But something about it, passing really close with the sun, you could argue that it had, well, it certainly had a connection in time to those events. Whether it's just a temporal correlation or whether it's more causal, that is up for debate. I think it's more causal, but that's because I'm more willing and open and accepting of seeing patterns play out and not feeling the need to feel like I know everything 100% and be an authoritarian with that. True science is, the true scientists are those who are open and investigating and not just authoritarian with what they claim. That's always been the case. You can talk about Copernicus, you can talk about Galileo, you can go all the way back to the Greeks. It's always been the case. Those that are open and investigative and curious are the ones that are doing the true science. That is the true ethos of science. Leonardo da Vinci, right? So yeah, let's go through some of these viewer questions before they pile up too much. And then we'll talk more about these comets and 3i Atlas. And glad you're all here in the live stream. We got 12,000 viewers right now. Hello, welcome. I'm your host, Stefan Burns. If you're new here, we cover what's happening with the Earth in terms of earthquakes, volcanoes. I had a crazy volcano dream last night. I'll share that as well. Also things like, lunar cycles and planetary resonances, planetary geometry, solar activity, space weather, which is what we have coming up. It's what's happening effectively starting right now. And then we look at all these other forces like comets and interstellar objects, and why 3i Atlas has captured the public imagination so much is kind of unknown, but it hasn't done it for no reason. And I don't think you can point to any single one person and say, oh, they're the one that drummed up all this excitement. I think 3i Atlas just, through its nature and its resonance and its consciousness, has captivated the curiosity of millions of people. And it's here to bring about some sort of significant change and awakening. Through means that we probably will only be able to really kind of understand with 2020 hindsight. And at this moment in time, we're probably still a little blind to it. But just because it doesn't have a mouth that can talk on a YouTube live stream doesn't mean that there's not some sort of intelligence to this interstellar object. So how far away from Earth is our furthest weather probe? Well, I don't know if you mean space weather or regular weather. Regular weather would probably be the geostationary satellites at 5.6 Earth radii, because we have the GOES East and GOES West satellites, along with some others from like the Japanese and Europeans, like Copernicus and the Japanese one, I don't remember the name. But they take a lot of imagery like thermal and visual and more of the Earth from all these different angles. So those are some of the furthest. If we're talking space weather, right now it's the solar orbiter, because it's it's halfway to the sun. It can even be on the far side of the sun. We also have the stereo cameras, which are ahead in the orbit. So we have that. So that answers your question. And do you think 3i Atlas is consciousness, has consciousness? Yes, I just discussed that. I also have made a couple of videos where I go in depth on that. So if you want to check that out, go to my What is 3i Atlas video playlist, and then scroll to the bottom for the older videos, because that was the first thing I came out with. When we discovered 3i Atlas early July, like I think my second video was dedicated, my first video was on what's this thing made out of, and we talked about antimatter. We talked about consciousness a little bit. Second video was dedicated to talking about consciousness, plasma, complex dusty plasma, and more. Thank you, Kalex, for your super thanks. I recognize you. What a vibe. Yes, thank you so much. And thank you, John, for your super sticker. Much appreciated. Shannon asks, when did we discover the possible connection between solar activity and earthquakes? I've never heard the connection mentioned until I started watching you. So yeah, this goes back quite some time. I mean, there was research papers that were released in the 60s looking at solar activity and earthquakes. And back then, there was just an open spirit of investigation that existed. So people didn't immediately just shut these things down. Like, okay, maybe there is a connection. We just simply don't know. We were more cognizant of the fact that there's more that we don't know than we do know back then. So there are papers from the 1960s and 70s that you can look at. I mean, also the 80s, 90s, and basically they continued on. And then there are a variety of people that have been talking about that for a while. So probably the most well-known, some of you probably watch this guy, is Ben from Suspicious Observers or Space Weather News. Say what you will about him. I'm not going to comment on that because the guy doesn't like me. But I don't have to share any of my thoughts on him. But regardless, say what you will, he has been talking about the connection between solar activity and earthquakes for many years now. So he's probably the most well-known YouTube/public person I know that's been discussing that. I'm not sure if the Electric Universe people talk about that. I know they're very big into speaking about the Electric Universe cosmology, which is really pioneered by Hans Alvin. And so I have some of his books, and I'm chewing through them. I read Cosmic Plasma. That's a foundational work for anyone interested in this. But the universe isn't just electromagnetic, it's also gravitational. So it's both. You have to look at it from both perspectives. But I'm not sure the Electric Universe people have ever discussed the earthquake angle for solar activity. I know most of the space weather people think it's just like a hoax, but we have a lot of statistical data. But at the same time, the statistical data that we have is very short. The time frame, let's say, let's stretch it out to 100 years, okay? Because it's not 100 years. I mean, we have sunspot records, but for good earthquake observations, we don't even have 100 years. But let's stretch it out to 100 years. That's like a fraction of a blip of a blink of an eye in the geologic scale, in the geologic sense. So we would really, if we want to tease out these connections, want to have like 10,000 years of data or more. And then I think the other way of doing it, which is what we do on the channel, is that we just stay focused in the present moment so we can see these things unfold in real time and build up that database of memory. Because if something does exist, it will manifest itself and show itself to you. But if you want to conclusively prove something, you're going to need a long data set that makes it undeniable. But you can also, if you are open-minded and are paying attention and you're living in the present moment, you can see these things happen in real time, as we've done time and time again on this channel. So I 100% am on board the solar activity and earthquake connection, and it just makes sense once you learn about this from a bigger perspective, because the sun's magnetic field, the electric field of the sun, is propagating all the way out 100 astronomical units. The Earth is bathed within that. So it's not like the Earth, yeah, it has this magnetic field, but it can't be separated from that, just as a cell in your body can't be separated and isolated from the overall cellular voltage gradients that run through your body because of our bioelectricity. Those cellular voltage gradients inform cell behavior, both at the individual and collective level. They influence the expression of DNA, right? And DNA is locked within the nucleus of a cell. So you have the cell membrane, which is a lipid bilayer, so it has some electrical properties to it. There's an electrical difference across it where it's polarized. So you have a very strong, especially neurons have a very strong negative polarization. So there's like negative 60, I think it's like microvolts or something. When they depolarize, that's when they undergo mitosis and split. If it stays depolarized, that's cancer, because it'll just keep replicating. But you have that, and then the nucleus has its own membrane, which then contains the DNA. So for this cellular voltage gradient to influence DNA, it has to be able to actually reach all the way there, not attenuate enough in signal to be insignificant, and then DNA being a highly conductive fractal antenna connects to that. Electrons zip around, the expression of the DNA through resonance changes. This is our best understanding in a model, and now you have different proteins being produced. So just as if the universe is fractal, which it is, right, you can use that as one kind of microcosm understanding for the macrocosm. And it's the same way. These larger electric and magnetic fields and gravitational fields that the Earth exists within influence the Earth down to its core. And so it's foolish in my mind to think that there isn't a connection between this stuff. It's just, what is the connection? What are the variations of that? How does it express itself, and more? That's kind of the deal. And there we go. Yeah, so we have more questions. Let me go through a couple more questions. Just got to kind of find them. Oh, there it is. Okay. And how am I holding up mentally through all this? Yeah, I'm doing fine. I mean, I've had some interesting things happen to me. Basically, to keep it really short and simple, I'm not here to talk about myself really, but I've had my body very clearly talk to me, say, hey, you need to do this and this and this. And I do find it interesting that we have 3i Atlas, first off, coming into the inner solar system. It's this interstellar object coming into our field of awareness and consciousness. So I see that as really you have this unknown agent bringing to light things that are happening within you, perhaps consciously, your health and wellness, within your body, and more. I've personally been undergoing that journey that's lined up perfectly with the arrival of 3i Atlas. Once we first observed it, it's like spot on, exact alignment with me. So it's a synchronicity for me for sure. And I'm very thankful my body is giving me certain signs and signals saying, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. Learn this now so you can have this protocol later. That's why I'm doing this long water fast right now. I'm on day 3 right now, 72 hours or so right now. I'm hoping to go to 7 days, but I'll stop when my body says, hey, you're good, right? You have to listen to that more than just put a number on things. But yeah, just because things can be challenging doesn't mean that's not a good thing to work through. There's a profound restructuring that is happening right now for everybody, and also at the collective scale. Saturn and Neptune going conjunct. What does that mean? Saturn is deep structures related to your spine, your bones, and Neptune is all about dissolving boundaries, and it's the imagination space, and it's these liminal realms. And so all these ideas are floating around in the Saturnian morphic field, or the Neptunian morphic field, whereas concrete things exist in the Saturnian one. Last Saturn-Neptune conjunction that we had the fall of the Berlin Wall, right? We had the collapse of the Soviet Union. Structures dissolve and new boundaries dissolve, and then new structures emerge. And this is a space where anything can manifest. So that's also what's happening right now, where certain things that we thought, like maybe it's programs, behaviors, patterns, societal structures, governments, the monetary system is basically undergoing a huge revision right now if you're not aware of it, right? All that stuff is in flux and will continue to be so due to this, you could argue, due to the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that we have. And that's a very, very, very powerful planetary resonance. So yeah, a lot of people are feeling this. I'm not alone. Certainly, I'm thankful for all the new awareness that I've been given. And yeah, I'm feeling good. Overall, I'm feeling good. Can't complain. Thank you for asking. A super sticker there from Alion Nej. Thank you so much. And also one from Gatekeeper. From Connor. Hey, Stefan. I love your thoughts on 3i Atlas possibly being a projectile meant to destroy early civilizations after detecting radio signals. Yeah, oh, I love your thoughts. Okay, yeah, because I've never had that thought before. So, is 3i Atlas a projectile that was sent from another civilization that picked up some of our early radio transmissions? that's interesting. We had this WOW signal in 1977. 3i Atlas is only like 9-10 degrees off from the location of that. If it is a projectile meant to destroy Earth before we reach a type 1 civilization, there's 3 different types, type 1, 2, and 3. One is that you harness the power of, I believe is it the sun or is it the Earth? It's one of the two. It's like a sci-fi concept. And then, type 1 is that you harness the overall power of like the Earth. Type 2 is of the solar system. Type 3 is of the galaxy. So we're not even a type 1 yet. We're a type 0 civilization. If they were going to hit us, they should have sent it straight to us. Unless it's outfitted with some sort of technology that it's going to take us by surprise when it does that superior conjunction on the 21st of October, 22nd of October, right around then, and then it all of a sudden slingshots straight to Earth. I'm not betting on that. We hope that doesn't happen. If it is, it's going to be a huge impact. But I think that's more a fantasy idea than a reality. I mean, it's technically these things are possible, but why? They pick up Bugs Bunny on the radio waves, all of a sudden like, let's destroy them. I just don't think it makes sense. And I think if there's other entities and extraterrestrials, aliens, whatever out there, I think they're probably smarter than us. I think they're probably kinder than us, more compassionate than us. There's probably some bad guys too, but in general, I think that we're probably the low consciousness ones. Look at what we're doing in Ukraine. Look at what we're doing with the Uyghurs in China. Look what's happening in Sudan. Look at what happened with World War II, World War I, the Vietnam War, Korea, all what's happening in the Middle East. We're the monsters here. I think that's also what we have to come to. Look at what's happening in Gaza, folks. Nothing good is happening there. It's the big G word. It's actually the CS word too. CS. It's not good. We need to rise in our consciousness. Hopefully, this object coming in, 3i Atlas, is a catalyst for that, rather than, oh, we're going to wipe you guys out because we picked up your Bugs Bunny cartoons. But thank you for the super thanks. And James, thank you as well. You're 85% scientific groovy, 50% kind of out there. That is correct. We've done some fun things on this channel, had some interesting experiences. Once you go there, you can't come back. So, but I actually spend most of my time completely sober. I don't really drink. Right now, I'm not even eating food. So some people think I'm hopped up on amphetamines or something. I've never touched those. They're really gross. They screw with you. Rockman, thank you for the super thanks. I will update you as soon as possible with all things. That is my pledge. And yeah, Dobsonian power and Stefan Burns equals facts. Yeah, he's a cool dude. I like him. I like his hustle. I like his hustle. Clouded Leopard, thank you for the very big super thanks. I'm having such a headache and I never get it normally. What's that all about? I wanted to ask you your opinion about Brian from Global Weather Report. And I don't know who Brian from Global Weather Report is, so I can't give you my opinion. So, yeah, shout out to Jolie. Shout out to your cat. So, yeah, sorry I can't answer your question, but thank you for your support, and I recognize you there. And do I think 3i Atlas is tied to the WOW signal? I personally don't think it is. My intuition isn't poking me and saying, hey, WOW signal, 3i Atlas, they're one and the same. I just don't get that sense. It's interesting, fairly close together, both from the constellation of Sagittarius, but personally, I don't think it is. I think it's fun to speculate on, and a lot of these things to speculate on, especially as it relates to 3i Atlas being aliens or technology, is really about how can we be more prepared and ready as an interplanetary species, because we're soon going to be on the moon and on Mars, and eventually, space bases, I'd imagine, around the other planets, right? And colonizing, probably within my lifetime. I would hope that we're out there colonizing the interplanetary, our solar system. We need to be thinking about these things. So whether it is or is not is less important to my mind than, well, we should consider this, and how should we best plan accordingly and be strategic about this? A lot of these sci-fi books, like a great example would be Ender's Game, right? A lot of these sci-fi authors, I think, have really been channeling kind of information from the future and putting it into their books because some of them are very well thought out and logical. Yeah, I mean, it's a sci-fi fantasy plot, but like the dynamics of how war would occur across the solar system. I think one book series that I really liked as it relates to this is called Old Man's War. I believe that's the title. It's like 5 or 6 or more books. Maybe there's new ones I haven't read, but Old Man's War. And it really lays out like the dynamics of how, I think it's Old Man's War. There's another one too. God, what's the other one where there's like these different types of humans? There's like gold humans and red humans and silver humans and bronze humans. Maybe someone knows what that one is. But that one also lays out like this solar system conflict angle. I think it's really interesting. We need to be thinking about things like that. At least that's what I think. So thank you for that. Jay, Jacoby, hope you're doing well. Love the content, helpful, informative. I'm flying to Japan October 21st. Unfortunately, I'm nervous. How do you think 3-Hour Atlas will hold up that day? Well, I think that's, on October 21st, we have a new moon. And we'll look at Stellarium in just a little bit. We'll look at that next. But that is a day of new beginnings. And 3-Hour Atlas conjunct that sun new moon alignment speaks to that trip perhaps being very significant for you. So I would not be fearful or worried, though we don't know what's going to happen then. There is a lot up in the air, but I wouldn't be fearful or worried. I'd be more optimistic and inspired. The thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently and really rewiring my brain personally is that I feel like a society in general often, it's like you have to be inspired. Like someone else is out there inspiring you. Whereas really inspiration and being inspired and having a positive outlook on life is a free will decision that you can make. It has to start here. You can be inspired by other people, but it's like motivation and actually doing the thing. People can motivate you, but you have to find it deep down inside to actually start that workout program and lose the weight. Someone telling you, hey, you got to do this, that, it's never going to happen until you find it from within. That's at the spiritual level. And that's the same with inspiration and hope and optimism, positivity. It's a decision that we can make every single day. And if more people flip to making that free will decision to be inspired or looking for inspiration, then that makes the world a better place and inspires other people. I just watched a video today, a short little video about how they're using this ultrasound device to zap cancer cells in the body completely non-invasively. So it's like this bed of water that you place over the body. Right now it's specifically for, I believe, the liver, but they're expanding out to the pancreas and maybe prostate and all these other organs. And this ultrasound probe, the high frequency sound waves, can very precisely localize that waveform spike to where a cancer tumor is. And in fact, it just liquefies it. Because it's at the right resonant frequency, it just completely obliterates that cancer tumor. And then the moment the machine is turned off, it just basically spreads out, and then the immune system has to clean it up. So you may get like flu-like symptoms and stuff, but no longer you have to go in there and like take a scalpel and cut it out and get chemotherapy. Like this is, that's incredible. That's incredible technology. That is really the future. Energy, frequency, vibration, energy healing, frequency healing, things like this. This is the direction we're going. This is awesome because sometimes cancer just happens, right? Like, yeah, maybe there's some emotional component to it or some dietary health component, whatever. Sometimes it just happens. Hereditary, I don't know, exposure. You're 4 years old and like for the people in the 50s, they would go down the neighborhoods and spray like crazy chemicals. There's, think about what happened to a lot of the black communities that they did all this covert testing on, right? Which is tragic. They don't want you to know about that as well if you never heard about that. A lot of them came down with cancer, right? It's in the military, like it's not good stuff. So the fact that there's like treatments like this, which are easy and simple, you just lay down and they blast the cancer tumors with sound, like amazing. Like inspiration is a choice. So kind of a long question for your thing, but that new moon is looking for you. I would say probably pretty good because It's conjunct this interstellar kind of inspirational cosmic energies, clearly capture the curiosity and imagination of millions of people. And you're flying off to a new country. I think you're gonna have a great time. I want to go to Japan. I haven't been there yet, so have fun with that. Callie, thank you for the super sticker. And any chance for an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse from the shockwave? Probably not. Probably just a bigger storm than expected. Right now, NOAA is forecasting G1 up to G2. At least that's what it said last night. Let me see what it's saying right now. We'll check the latest forecast. It came out about 7 hours ago. Let's see what they're saying. Geomagnetic field activity will likely reach G1 storm levels with a chance for G2 moderate periods on the 7th and 8th of October due to coronal mass ejection effects. And then primarily unsettled conditions are expected on the 9th as the CME effects slowly wane. That's where they need to update. This new shockwave, they probably haven't looked at the data yet or integrated it. That is probably going to come in around the 8th or the 9th. So yeah, that's when I would expect the storming to be bigger. But like a big electromagnetic pulse event, I don't think we're going to get that from this. But still, maybe a G3 storm is possible. Thank you, Tommy, for the super thanks. And Mostly Lady 3.0. Is it possible 3i Atlas will slingshot around the sun and surprise us? Don't know. I'm not betting on it. I think it's an ultra low probability, like 0.000000001. I think it's a space rock, basically. But that doesn't mean it's insignificant and doesn't have a level of consciousness to it. The sun has consciousness. The planet has consciousness. All the planets have consciousness, right? Space, the cosmos, we have consciousness. We're all embedded within that. So again, I just spoke a lot about how this thing coming in is bringing awareness to what's happening within us and also what's happening at a societal collective level. So, but you know, that purely kind of materialistic view of it being like a ship or an attack vector or something, I think is super low probability. But who am I? I'm just one person. That's just what I think. And thank you for the super thanks, Love Buzz. How will your water fast affect you in a G3 storm? It should be fine. We'll see. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm switching to ketosis effectively right now. So I guess it gets easier after day 3. Like once you're into ketosis, I guess the fasting actually gets easier and easier. Your drive to eat and hunger signals drop. Right before I started live stream, someone was cooking up something that smelled amazing. I was like, oh my God. But I closed the windows to reduce the noise. But I should be fine. And actually, I recommend fasting for people that are really sensitive. If you see a big storm coming in, like don't pound like 3 Big Macs or something. Probably better for you to like reduce your food intake and definitely coffee and more, because it will make the overall system run a little cleaner and smoother. A lot of questions here, so we're going to get back to them. We'll come back to Ricky Lee right there, and let me write that down. And let's look now at Stellarium. And if you're new here, jumping in, hello, welcome. I'm your host, Stefan Burns, geophysicist, space weather dude, cosmic bro, you know, whatever you want to say. We cover a lot on the channel. We discuss basically what's happening here energetically on Earth, and we also look at this from a bit of a consciousness, spiritual angle. But that means earthquakes, volcanoes, space weather, solar activity, these comets, Interstellar Object 3i Atlas. That has been a big one. A lot of interest with that recently. So I'm pulling up Stellarium now. We're going to get this going. Yep, Cosmic Bro. I think that's probably the best title because some people get upset when I say geophysicist because like, what are his credentials? It's like, well, you know, I worked as a senior geophysicist and my degree is in geology. But some people are so hung up on like a piece of paper on a wall. But in my mind, it's, are you investigating something every single day? Is that your passion? Are you spending like literally every single day and moment looking into something? That is what I do. Like I'm on this 24/7. So I don't think pieces of paper mean all that much nowadays in the 21st century. But that's my opinion. Here we have Stellarium. And let's see if we can make that full screen. And let us find Interstellar Object 3i Atlas. Hold up though. It's like not finding my cursor though. Okay, I'm going to have to keep it windowed because my cursor is like disappearing behind it. So let us turn on our date and time here. And let's also I need to even, yeah, here we go. Let's turn off our atmosphere. And let's put on our constellation labels and lines. Turn on our ecliptic grid. So this is what we have right now. There's the sun, there's Venus. You'll see that Venus is just starting to enter into the constellation of Virgo. The sun right now is in the middle of Virgo. And here is Mercury, there is Mars. Again, 3i Atlas just performed a very close approach to Mars. So 3i Atlas is effectively right in this zone, but we can actually search for it. I already loaded it in to the database. Here we have the position of 3i Atlas, soon to perform a conjunction with Mercury, as viewed from Earth effectively, right next to the star called Kang. And you zoom in really close there, and they just have some placeholder. This isn't actual imagery there, but this is 3i Atlas right there, okay? So let us go forward now to the 21st of October. See how it's getting closer and closer to the sun? And see how the moon is racing across, okay? So let me do this again. This is the 14th now. It's getting closer and closer to the sun, and right as it performs that conjunction, we get a new moon, which is crazy. I think that's absolutely crazy. So we can go forward to the exact moment of that new moon, which will be here. I'll have to turn the ground off or change my location to see that. But we can just look at this like the Earth is invisible. And we will get our new moon exact right about here. Maybe, yeah. Look how close that is. I mean, this is really pretty epic. Yeah, right about there. Look at that. That's October 21st at 5 a.m. in the morning, 36 minutes for California. So we're not going to be, because if I turn the ground back on, is this universal time or is this should be local time? Yeah, exactly. It's going to be nighttime for California, but the Europeans and the Asians, they'll see this exactly. And the reason why it's not like in the night sky, because there's the sun. So this is daylight, right? Just like a new moon. So if you go outside and it's bright outside, the sun is somewhere overhead, 3i Atlas and the moon are going to be almost exactly conjunct at the same time. That's what's happening here on the 21st of October. And 3i Atlas is moving pretty quick. We see that this breaks up pretty fast. So there is the 20, let's actually pop, yeah, okay. Yeah. So we can move forward a day, and then it starts to break up like that. See that? Eventually reaches Venus around perihelion, in fact. It's right around the 29th and 30th of October we have the perihelion of 3i Atlas. So, but look at where it's doing this conjunction right here. It's in Virgo. So it's related to themes of health and wellness, renewal, regeneration, the harvest. I read an interesting quote. I'm reading right now the book Cosmos and Psyche. An interesting quote is that judgment, and this is like just a variation of it, okay? I'd have to grab the book to read it exactly. But judgment is not some far distant event that you eventually reach, like some sort of judgment period. Is that time, all time is existing simultaneously at once, and we live in a perpetual state of judgment. And with that perspective, it's important to be mindful of our decisions, because you can make good decisions today, bad decisions tomorrow, all together collapse down to a single point. That is what perhaps God looks at and views. So the things that you've done in the past can't change that. You can only change what's happening now in the future, but judgment is a singular point. everything you've done is a singular thing. So that's why it's so important now to always be living in a state, in my mind, in a state of where you're not guilty or shameful, and you're in alignment, in accordance with yourself and the cosmos, and you treat others with respect and that type of deal. Because you can't be like, oh, well, I'll clean up my act later. You need to clean it up now. And I do think that this new moon conjunct 3i Atlas in the constellation of Virgo is really speaking to that. That's my personal feeling with that. And we also see Mercury and Mars there in Libra. Libra is the constellation of judgment. Virgo is preparing for judgment. It's the period of time before you get there. Virgo is the virgin, right? This is the virgin maiden, but also recognizing that, like Persephone in Greek myth, that she's not going to be a virgin forever, right? That she may want to stay innocent and pure, but there is also this other side of her that's more complex and nuanced and open to a greater expression of humanity. And there are shadow aspects, right? No one's perfect. How do you integrate your shadow? Like, how do you work with these forces and factors? How do you bring these two polarities into balance? The innocent and the pure, and the dark and the devilish, you could say, right? Finding that balance. That's the journey of Virgo, and hopefully you make that journey in time, because then you move into judgment, which is Libra, but also relationships and more. So I just think this is really interesting. And let's actually go back, because I wanted to try to get the exact coordinate for this. So let's see if we can do that. I was hoping to do this on the, yeah, so we got right here 5:37. I mean, that's effectively when the new moon is. So 5:30, let's do 5:35 a.m. on the 21st of October for San Diego. And let's create an astronomical chart for this to see what is happening here. This is something I wanted to do on the live stream. And so it's mastering the zodiac. And we will change our settings to be true sky. So this is the actual constellations to size. So it's really an astronomical chart. You can read this astrologically, that's archetypal and significations and more. It's also an astronomical chart. And here we go. And now we can set this for the 21st. Now we know exactly when our new moon is. And San Diego. That's just my location, but you can set this for wherever. I believe there's a link to this in the video description, by the way. Try to refocus my camera there. There we go. And again, we want this to be 05:35. And let's see what we get. But they don't have an option, unfortunately, to add in interstellar objects. I'm thinking of actually releasing an app where you can easily integrate all these different objects like comets and more into an astronomical chart like this. So that's hopefully something I'll be able to do next year. But I'm going to need a developer who's a little bit of a whiz with working with this stuff to be able to make the app. But it shouldn't be too hard to find and fund. Thanks to all of your support. But here we have our new moon right there. We're only 4 arc minutes apart. So 3i Atlas is right there at this moment in time on the ecliptic plane. It has a little bit of deviation from the ecliptic plane, but it's effectively right there. So this is our astronomical chart. Venus on the ascendant for San Diego. Maybe I'll finally get a girlfriend. But the sun and the moon slightly below the horizon, right? They just set. Or they're just about to rise. They're just about to rise. Here we have Jupiter near the midheaven. Uranus is visible in the night sky. And then we have Saturn and Neptune about to set because they are nearly opposite this. So they're just below the horizon there. And then you have Pluto below the Earth. So yeah, this is the chart for 3i Atlas, effectively, with true constellations and true sky positioning and accurate constellation size. And for San Diego, this is all happening in the first house. So this is interesting. But you could cast this chart for yourself. Not really going to dive into this too much more. We also have this full moon today, right? So keep in mind with this, this solar shock wave coming in, that this full moon is going to be amplifying everything. It's a full supermoon. We can look at that with Stellarium, in fact. Let's pull up Stellarium again and check out this supermoon. I hope the live stream chat hasn't been too crazy. You know, I was hoping to read the chat more throughout the video, but it's so fast now that it's difficult to do so. So thanks for your, yeah, thankfully we have mods keeping things under control. Hello and welcome everybody. But yeah, it's honestly a little too fast now to, a little too fast now. I'm not looking for a girlfriend, by the way. I am too busy, honestly, for a girlfriend. At some point it'll happen. It's not like it's never happened before, but at some point it'll happen. In the present moment. So constellations, lines, labels, here we go. And let's keep the atmosphere on this time. And again, this is set for today. Let's watch what happens. So here's our sun. And actually we can go back in time a little bit. So let's go back. There's our full supermoon, okay? So we see the moon right here and we'll see the sun right on the opposite side. That's that opposition. So we had a big full supermoon last night. Maybe you saw it. Go forward in the day. It's now below the Earth. The sun is above. It's at zenith. Right now, roughly here, it's about 12:35 p.m. And then we get the sun to set in Virgo. And the moon is just about to rise in Pisces right there. So big full supermoon. Expect enhanced energetic effects as a result of that. And I think that's about it for Stellarium. And some, oh, I do want to show these comets really quick. So let's go to the Sky Live. And we have some more questions to answer too. A long video today. But that's the whole point, to be a more relaxed live stream today and just kind of go through this, create a space for everybody. But let's type in some of our comets. We have C 2025. Look at that, pops right up. A6 Lemon. There we go. And we'll type in C 2025 R2 Swan. We got that bad boy there too. These are the two, well, there's also one other one. I think it's C 2025 K1 Atlas. There are more than this, but these are the four main things to be tracking right now. 3i Atlas, A6 Lemon, R2 Swan, and K1 Atlas. So as it relates to this surprise solar storm impact that we had a few days ago, maybe like, yeah, a little less than a week ago, about a week ago actually, and these waves coming in, look at where R2 Swan is right now. It has this really long tail. It passed through this whole zone right there. So it's been loading this entire part of the interplanetary space in front of the Earth with a bunch of dust and plasma. So this could explain why we're seeing some of these unusual structures in the solar wind that I discussed at the beginning of the video. We also have K1 Atlas right now, nearly at its perihelion. You see that at this moment in time, nearly at its perihelion. That is going to be, actually, I think it's today. The 7th October, 8th of October, it's today. That was set back a few days. So we have this comet, which is not as large as some of the others, but still being picked up by photographers at its perihelion today, or roughly, I think that's its perihelion. Maybe one of these spots is actually closer, but it's probably there. Should be that inflection point. R2 Swan is getting closer and closer to the Earth, as we can see. We go forward in time. It's getting closer and closer, like this. See that? Now we're at the superior conjunction of 3i Atlas. Earth, Sun, 3i Atlas. R2 Swan is the closest it'll be to the Earth around that time. It may be a couple days before, like the 17th, 18th, maybe it's the 19th here. But in general, this comet is the closest to Earth at that time. Then we also have A6 Lemon, progressively getting closer and closer. Check that out. Let's go forward. And we go into November. Then we start to have A6 Lemon get close to the ecliptic plane. Right now it's above it, but we really get to the middle and end of November there. It's right on the ecliptic plane. And it's going to be about 120 degrees off from the sun for us, but it should be very bright and visible, especially right around here. I'd say probably early November, it's going to be a visible comet in the night sky. The light curve is going up and up. It's expected to reach like a magnitude of 3 or 4, which is quite bright. And then we have 3i Atlas, of course, there. It performs its perihelion on the 29th of October really is the closest that it gets. We see that right here. Look at how little inflection there is in that orbit. That's because it's going so fast, it has that hyperbolic orbit. So that's the closest approach to the sun. It will continue to zoom through, we think, we hope, we pray. We hope it's not some crazy alien thing. You know, it's good to entertain these ideas and think about it and be prepared, but it's also, it doesn't serve you to be worried or fearful about this. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are wanting to whip you up into a fear about this, and that's kind of the problem. And here, this just came in. Is it reasonable to be extremely freaked out by this? I'm not sure reasonable is the right word, but because everyone has a different level of what interests them and what, you know, everyone has different fears and everything. But yeah, this is bringing this, a lot of fears have been brought up as a result of this. And I don't think it's unreasonable, but it's something that we need to work through. But I think it's, I'm not really a fan of people that are purposely trying to whip people up into a fear about this. We should be looking at this from an open, curious perspective, but also one that's grounded in reality. And the most likely reality is that this is a interstellar object, some big hunk of something from a different solar system, we think, that is traveling very quickly, that has this complex dusty plasma cloud around it, which we call a coma. Most astronomers would say it's gas and dust, but it's actually plasma too. And if you want to speculate a little bit, then you can start to talk about how this affects the morphic field of consciousness in our solar system, and awareness in our information field, our planetary resonances, right? Then you can start to talk about that. But to endlessly talk about how it's an alien craft and to take photos and AI videos that people make of it and say they're real, that's a real disservice. We need to move beyond that as a society. Those people need to grow up. They really do. All my thoughts and opinions are my own. These are my own beliefs, but you know, we need to stop eating cereal as adults, basically, right? If you're still eating cereal as an adult, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe as like a one-off once a month or something, you like it, but if you're reaching for a bowl of cereal every single morning, like, we need to be eating healthy foods, we need to be having healthy thoughts, right? Treating others with kindness and with respect, and doing adult things. Back in the 60s and 70s, incredible things were happening, right? People were protesting for their rights and their freedoms. They're holding governments accountable. We were doing incredible things in space. Now people are just scrolling around on TikTok. So we need to level up. It's time for us to like release ourselves of the old programming and level up. Because if we want this world to be a beautiful place and not just like a slave planet, then we need to do that. It's each and every single one of our responsibilities to do that. Yeah, off the soapbox. So that is the update. I think I covered basically everything. Let me go back to these super thanks though, because we got a lot of them here in the chat. And I think I missed a couple. I'm not sure I addressed this one here. Oh, I need to close out this. This makes the computer really slow. There we go. From Ricky Lee, or is that who yeah, that's where I left off. Okay, do you feel 3i Atlas will have a big impact on our collective spiritual awakening and raising our frequency? Yes, I just talked about that a lot, so I think that answers your question already, so thank you for the super thanks. Art of Meta, thank you for the Thai bot. Thank you for working and being here with us while fasting. You're quite welcome. It helps me to stay in the zone. You know, yeah, I'll probably go out for a walk after this. It's really nice out. And yeah, just taking it one step at a time. But it's important for us to do these deep resets. If we're talking about fasting just for a little bit, a 7-day fast has tremendous health benefits. I've never done a 7-day fast before. I've done up to 72 hours, which I'm at 72 hours right now. So I've done 2 72-hour fasts, and this is one of them. And I'm going to continue this one. But back during Paleolithic times, even Neolithic times, right, all throughout history, we have engaged with our other operating system, which is that of autophagy, where we don't have food coming in. It could be for a few days. And we need that operating system because it helps us to reboot our immune system, heal our gut. You know, the liver shrinks 50% during a fast and then completely regenerates. So you can heal a lot of problems with fasting. It's anti-cancer, it's good for skin issues and brain fog and all these things, right? It helps you to like remodulate your microbiome to be more sympathetic and less pathogenic and less like commensal. So it's tremendously useful. I'm 34. I've never in my life ever have done a 7-day fast before. There's never been a need to. Now, if I was alive 10,000 years ago as a hunter-gatherer, I probably would have done dozens, if not hundreds, of long fasts, maybe at this length. So the fact that we're not doing that anymore, and that's such a short time frame for us evolutionarily, speaks to the fact that this is something that we need to do. And I think it's really important that I've been into fasting for a while. I've just never done the long ones. I've done plenty of 2-day fasts and 24-hour fasts, and those are a great place to start. Intermittent fasting, 1 meal a day, which is a 24-hour fast. You just do, let's say, lunch to lunch or dinner to dinner. Those are fantastic. You feel so good when you're doing OMAD, 1 meal a day. 48-hour fasts are really good, but your body, to do these deep regenerative repair processes, it needs to dip into autophagy in a very serious way. And you don't get that until you're into ketosis and you're beyond the 3-day mark. So yeah, it's my body's been giving me the signal to do this because I think this is going to be really important going forward because we have all the pesticides, all the chemicals in our environment, the forever chemicals, right? All the 5G and all the EMFs and the radiation and the 400 smart devices. I'm in an apartment complex and I can pick up like 50 Wi-Fi signals. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And so we have all these things attacking us from all angles. We also have some of the best medicine and knowledge and information now to our understanding. You can go on Amazon, you can buy any like different herbal product, which is amazing. Herbalism is also super, super key. You know, drinking herbal teas and coffee. That's why I have the website, earthevolution.com. But we need to also be doing the things and be cognizant of the past and you could say our ancestry, and to work with these systems. So yeah, just a little thought about fasting for you. So thank you so much for that. Super thanks. And could Atlas be the comet planet Andy predicted, cited by astronomer Carlos Fernanda? I don't know who any of those people, though Carlos Fernanda sounds familiar. I don't know. There's some interesting things going around about 3i Atlas, but they do anytime there's a weird object. You know, there's always the Nibiru people, there's always the Wormwood people, there's all the Edgar Cayce people. They come out of the woodwork every single time there's something a little strange. And so far, the world keeps on humming along. So I don't put my chips there, but I don't also just completely throw it out. I think it's interesting, but you probably will never see me place a bet on any of those things. That's just me, though. Margarita Diaz, thank you so much for your super thanks and for your long-term support, long-term view of the channel. Thank you so much. Ronnie, thank you so much. And Tiare, thank you so much as well. Yeah, all the gold nuggets. A lot of things talked about in today's live stream. Jean Ho Sue, thank you for your super thanks as well. Hope I got your name right. Brownie Dog, your channel has inspired my art, storytelling, and gave me so much hope in a world hard to comprehend. Is there a way to send you a story you inspired? Yeah, you can reach out to me on Instagram and just shoot me a message there. and I'll be able to read that. And yeah, happy to. A lot of people message me often sharing these sort of like inspirational stories or how it changed their life, whatever. And it's great to read. So yeah, you can shoot me an Instagram message at Stefan Burns Official if you want. Why are ACE and Gong 2 so out of sync? Red was southern polarity on Gong 2 and solar cycle 24. It's northern, but on ACE, red looks south. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to, this is probably a little bit too much of a like forensic thing to do as I'm wrapping up the live stream. But in general, I use the real-time solar wind data. You know, I look at Gong sometimes for far-side imagery or sunspot imagery of the sun. I don't really look at the coronal hole stuff that Gong puts out, so I can actually show that. Maybe it's, I think it's the solar magnetic field models. Yeah, here we go. I'm almost never looking at this stuff. I really don't think it's that important. Some people, they go crazy over this stuff and they're looking at it and they're like, yeah, I just really, I've never found really that much value in tracking these models from Gong in terms of my space weather forecasting. So maybe that answers your question. I think it's cool. There's probably some use there, but it's never been the first place I turn to. The other tools I have, I think, take in all those angles and do a better job of it. But that's just me. But thank you for the super thanks, Silent Murmur. Best online teacher for this type of stuff by far. Thank you, Kendra. I do my best. RPM, could 3i Atlas energy from plasma cause a coronal mass ejection or solar anomaly from the other side of the sun towards Earth? Thank you for your hard work in keeping us learning and informed. I think it's more likely if 3i Atlas is going to be interacting with the sun, it's going to be more an electrodynamic way. So through the creation of some novel electromagnetic circuit, it being on the far side of the sun will then influence perhaps something to occur on the Earth-facing side. Maybe we get something to launch out towards 3i Atlas during its superior conjunction perihelion. But it's getting fairly close. It's quite bizarre. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. It'd really be through electric circuit dynamics that go beyond our understanding. And because the space weather community at large went in the direction of magnetic reconnections and gravity, instead of into the plasma model that was really pioneered by Hans Alvin and Birkeland, we don't have cool solar system models for electric circuits across the entire solar system. Instead, we get, we have space weather models, but they're all based off of magnetic fields more so than electric fields. And you really need to look at both. So we don't really have any products that we can look to help us understand this from that perspective. That's the thing. So it's really kind of still in the imagination space, also in the research space. You read Hans Alvin, you learn about Birkeland currents, you see the observational evidence that we have for them, and you can kind of put it together in your mind. But in terms of just like being able to whip up a space weather model for you that takes those dynamics into effect and then therefore can account for something like 3i Atlas or Oumuamua or a comet or whatever, we simply don't have it because the mainstream did not go in that direction. They went into a totally different direction. And I think we're starting to see a shift back towards the center, but we'll see. Could 3i Atlas have shut down satellites or all the satellites? Only if it's alien technology or something, or we get some big solar impact. Like I'm talking Carrington level to Miyake event. That's the only way that we're getting all the satellites to go down. And even a Carrington level solar storm impact wouldn't do that. You need, I mean, maybe a super flare. We don't know. The particle flux would have to be so much it just short circuits every single satellite, every single one. You need a massive event for that. Is that possible? I mean, Carrington events happen, but I'm not betting on it. And Bard's Lantern Soundworks, thank you for the super thanks. Tanya, thanks for doing what you do. Please get more herb coffee back in stock. Yeah, we're mixing up a new batch very, very soon. We do have a little bit in stock right now, unless it's sold out already. But I would go to the website right now if you want that, because I did put 20 in stock. So there should still be some that are up and running. Yeah, and it does have some lion's mane mushroom in it. So yeah, it's good for switching over from a pure mushroom-based coffee. You still get some coffee, but you get the other stuff. It's great. I have it right now in my Solar Storm tumbler. It keeps it nice and warm for quite a while. Alma Star, thank you for the super thanks. I watch every video. I love that you include sacred geometry, sound and frequency, grounding and healing. I sound like an amateur geophysicist because of you when I talk about space weather. That is awesome. Yeah, the goal here is to educate, not just to tell you what to think, but to open up your mind and give you the tools so you can do these analysis yourself to some degree. We all have our own skill levels, our own education levels, our own interest and curiosity, our own time commitments, but more so than just giving you the update as to what's happening today, I want to help expand your way of thinking to be more open and curious, but also discerning, right? To be very clear and be able to see these little misdirections that a lot of people do to influence your thinking. And then also how to research. How do we approach a problem? Do we do it from a linear kind of viewpoint, or do we attack it from all angles? That's, these are all the things that I think are important. How do you think versus what do you think? Are you just thinking what you've been programmed to think, or how are you choosing to think? Are you choosing to be inspired, or are you choosing to just be awash in doom and negativity, which is what mainstream society kind of seems to promote in general? But it's a free will decision. That's what we're all about here. Yeah, appreciate the mindset, exploring, and being aware. That's what it's all about. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mary and D87 with everything electronic. Why no EMP prevention? Good question. But you can't really ground things in space. See, with some sort of electric system or some device, let's say a big data center, you can ground that down. Now, it's not going to help 100% with an electromagnetic pulse. It's really complex. To answer your question, it's really complex because Faraday cages aren't perfect. People think Faraday cages are this absolutely perfect thing that'll protect you from an EMP, and that's not the case. It can help a little bit, but it's not a perfect shield for that. So it's just the nature of electronics. If you build something that's highly conductive, it's now susceptible to carrying a lot of electric current along it. If there's a big flux increase of energy, anything that's more conductive is going to have more energy flowing through it than before this big flux event occurred, like a Carrington impact. Our bodies are superconductive as well. So that's the other thing to consider. And can you put a Faraday cage on your body? Again, you can't resolve the fact that things are just naturally more conductive over others. Things that are resistive are not going to really be impacted by that. But if you live in a room that's shielded with 4 feet of lead, maybe you won't be affected by Carrington impact bioelectrically. But who's going to put 4 feet of lead shielding around their house or build a bunker like that? I hear there's an underwater volcano going off the coast of Oregon. Yeah, that's the axial seamount. It's expected to erupt probably in the next 12 months. It's a shield volcano. It's not expected to be anything significant in terms of human impact or tsunamis or anything, but it is cool. And we have talked about that on the channel. If you stay up to date with my videos, eventually we'll get back to that when there's a notable update. So we cover these things as they occur when there's notable events happening with them. Big updates, that's when I then cover it. And the key is to stay subscribed, so eventually you get enough of those big updates that you're well aware and informed of what's happening. So when the next big update comes in, you're given that information in a timely way. But I'm not releasing endless videos on axial seamount and making up claims about it to drive engagement, because there's bigger things for me to cover, like what's happening in the moment. So yes, Poland loves you too. Thank you so much. Dziękuję and Dzień dobry, though it's probably night for you guys. So I don't know how you say that. How do you say that in Polish? That it wouldn't be Dzień noc. It'd be something else. But sorry, I don't know much Polish. I do speak some Russian, but not much Polish. I do want to learn Polish though. You radiate that Aquarius light. Thank you for being you. Thank you, Tampa Storm, for that. And Heavy fate, do you believe in Jesus or are there other creators? I believe in Jesus. I believe in Buddha. I believe in Krishna. I believe in Muhammad. I believe in all the people, effectively. So I think there are many spiritual leaders, Confucius, that have walked on this planet, a lot of them unnamed and unknown. A lot of people have reached Christ consciousness, not just Jesus. And he was really speaking, Jesus did not live so he could be embodied and worshipped and revered by everybody. That was not his life purpose. This is very obvious if you just learn a little bit about what his thing was about. It was to help other people reach an enlightened state like him. So the fact that Christianity, maybe I'll rub some people the wrong way with this, but the fact, I hope not, I mean, this is just the deal. The fact that Christianity has like turned him into a worship figure is a little bit of a problem. It's great to recognize that Jesus brought enlightenment in Christ consciousness and what he achieved, and some of these, like him walking on water, turning water to wine, I don't know about that stuff. But his ethos is to be celebrated. But his goal was for us to also reach Christ consciousness, not for us just worship him blindly. That's actually pretty much against the teachings, the true teachings of Jesus. And if the church or churches were really interested in promoting the true teachings of Jesus, they would also talk about Mary Magdalene. And, well, they don't. So that's kind of your clue. You can read up on her. Read some books on that. Read the real history of Jesus, and then you'll get a better understanding of what's out there. But I'm no expert on this as well. I just have my own thoughts and opinions, and I really don't delve too much into the religious stuff. I'm more focused on inner exploration and then also understanding the cosmos. But I do have some thoughts. Stefan, do you see the connection between Three-Eye Atlas, seismic solar activity, and the Book of Revelation? Interesting follow-up. I mentioned you in your work in my book, Three-Eye Atlas and the Coming Awakening. Thank you for everything. Yeah, well, there does seem to be a lot of overlap. It is interesting, some of the phrases and passages in the Book of Revelation. I've not read the whole book, but people are constantly posting them on the channel. So inevitably, I found some and read some. And there's a lot of astronomical stuff in there, which is interesting. So there's certainly a lot of wisdom in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, and more. And I think probably at some point, something will happen that lines up with that. But is it Three-Eye Atlas? I don't think it is, but we'll see. We'll find out. I'm sorry I can't answer it more than that. But it is, we do get a lot of stuff talking about the moon and the sun and earthquakes and stars and comets in the Book of Revelation. So I do find it interesting that they really look outside the earth for some of these like big dramatic events. Even you say like cataclysms, biblical events. You have to look beyond the earth really for that. Does the moon being closer to Earth fully in sunlight make it easier to help telepathically connect with ETs? I have no idea. I'm sorry, I have no way of answering that question. I simply have no idea. But we do have a supermoon today. We have stronger gravitational forces. It's in the magnetotail, the full moon. In general, the veil is thin in October. There's more energetic flux. Maybe channeling and connecting to other conscious beings and other star systems is more amplified. I would say it is probably, but I've also heard people that are into this say that when conditions are at their absolute quietest geomagnetically, that's when they have the best channeling because there's less noise in the signal. So probably better when it's nice and quiet during a new moon. And I think you said, yeah, when the moon is close. Well, you're not talking about a new moon. You're just talking about the moon being closer to Earth. So I'm not sure that makes a difference. I can't really answer your question. I'm sorry. But thank you for the super thanks. Thank you, Chagnar, for the super thanks. Thank you, James, for the super thanks. Maybe Three-Eye is transporting the second coming of Jesus. Everyone's entitled to think what they want. I can't say yes or no. I don't think we have. There was a thing like a week ago of like people like rapture is today, and well, here we still are. I don't think rapture happened. And then yeah, we answered this question already or talked about that at least. Thank you, Susan, for the super thanks. Thank you so much. And Durian, you as well. Prophet Stefan is on it. I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, I'm doing my best to keep you guys up to date. So yeah, and we're at 10,000 viewers right now. So we've had a big live stream today. 12,000 to 10,000 viewers nonstop the whole time. That's awesome. So I see and recognize and honor all of you in the live stream, watching us on replay. You're all beautiful, wonderful human beings. We're all just going through this together. And there are differences between us in terms of size, shape, and sex, and beliefs, and everything, but we need to be able to find a common ground. And it's really about treating each other with respect. And also, I think another really important component of that is to not make up these fantasies of other people in our head. So, I mean, this is like a lot of relationship stuff, but with friends or family, like some interaction occurs, and then you're like, oh, well, they're thinking this way, or they're doing that. This is why they're not calling me, or this is why they're acting that way. You don't know. You don't know what's happening with that person in their head or anything. It's best just to completely let things just be what they are and communicate to find out what the reality situation is. And so that's important nowadays more than ever because we are so divided and polarized. This is what I believe, but we really need to be able to find that common ground and not make assumptions in our head of what other people are doing or thinking. Now, and the other component to this, let's be real, the other component is like, what are people saying and then what are they doing? That actions speak much louder than words. And a lot of people which aren't as conscious or awakened, they'll try to gaslight you and be like, oh, I'm saying this, but then they do something completely different. It's like, what are your actions? Because that is a very clear sign of effectively what you're doing and kind of what you're operating off of. So actions speak louder than words, but also don't make up stories in your head about someone. You can just stay in a state of observation. Just simply observe what's happening. You don't have to judge it. You don't have to interpret it. You just observe. And then when the time comes for you to make a decision yourself on how to act, you have all that information there. But it doesn't need to be heavily processed. This is something I'm working on every single day, as probably most people on the planet are. It's just being in that open state of observation non-judgmentally, but then when the time comes, what are you going to do? Then you make your choice. And it's not any hardship. You just do it. It's just what you're meant to do. So, Polenta, thank you. I appreciate you too. Thank you for the super thanks. And Jewel Sweet, thank you so much for the super thanks. Peace, love, and namaste. Alethea, do not fear the outer storm, fear the inner one more, for it is nearer and its destruction more certain. For what good is it if man builds fortunes and towers, but his soul is empty? Wise words. I would agree with that 100%. And that is what this inner journey is all about. I think I personally have been undergoing a journey as it relates to 3i Atlas in the inner world, because the synchronicities and the timing has been perfect for me. I'm not going to share my whole story here. I've talked about it just a little bit, but it's lined up perfectly for me. So yeah, and I wouldn't say fear the inner one more either, right? Sometimes structures need to collapse and to get broken down. We're in this Saturn-Neptune phase right now. So anything that does not belong, it's time for it to go and to build a new system. And that can be a little scary. Change is a little scary, but it's not to be feared. It's a chance for us to upgrade and level up, and maybe it's actually delivering some newfound information or skill that we acquire that's going to be tremendously beneficial 5 years from now. That's the thing. So like this 7-day fast, so I'll use this as an example. My body's giving me a sign like, hey, you need to do a fast because my elbow's been hurting and a couple other things which are not minor, they're building up. It's like, hey, you should do the deep fast. We need to do this. It's like, all right, maybe in 5 years, it turns out doing that 7-day fast was tremendously beneficial, and having some experience with that was a really good thing. So yeah, judgment, fear, I think we can let these things behind. But yeah, the stuff that's happening outside, certainly I agree, is less important than what's happening within. We talked about axial seamount, half pint. So thank you for your super thanks. Yeah, there is a volcano off the coast of Oregon. It's not that big. It's not going to be crazy destructive or anything, but it is expected to erupt in the next 12 months or so. And another super thanks from Abanian on the ET Moon one. Thank you so much for the continued super thanks. Magpie. Can you see 3i Atlas with a solar telescope like Dobsonian Power? I think, yeah, Dobsonian Power claims he can. At this point, I don't think you can. I'm not the one with the telescope operating it. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. But the one photo that he had of it, which is circulating around a little bit, maybe I can find it and show it really quick. And I haven't been watching all of his live streams conclusively to follow the journey because, he does it all live. And so you go watch 6, 7, 8 hours of this stuff now and make up your own mind if you wanted to. But personally, I don't think this is 3i Atlas. It's not like any other video photos that we've gotten of 3i Atlas. So I think he probably just captured some artifact, but I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know the whole story, but we have better photos of 3i Atlas from recently. For example, we can go all the way down to this website by 2 astrophotographers, and they need to update their security on the site, but regardless. And we'll go to deep sky. Actually, we'll go to comets here, but it's loading now. Here we go. Here's 3i Atlas. This is what the photo should look like. So that other photo is quite bizarre. This one is nothing like, this is a more proper photo of 3i Atlas. This was taken September 25th though. If I recall, this was taken beginning of October, like right before the Mars October 3rd thing. So I don't know the full story. Let's just say that. I don't know the full story, but at this point, I don't think you can really see it with your telescope, but I don't know the full story. I like the fact that he's pointing the telescope at the thing, doing his best. That's what's important. Now, everyone else running with this and making up a whole bunch of stories about it, that's kind of where it's like, it's not his fault, but that's where it's like, okay, come on, people. And Sierra, thank you for the super thanks. Could the ascension of believers be explained by acoustic levitation, since Scripture says Jesus returns at a shout and a trumpet, lifting them up? I have no idea. No idea. That's a whole rabbit hole I haven't really explored, but thank you for the super thanks. I apologize for not being able to talk about that question more. I'm from Brazil. What do you think we need to prepare for the worst case in any case of a big solar storm? Just make sure you have a hand crank radio. Make sure you have water and food on hand. It's good to have more than 72 hours of water. It's good to have, food. It's good to have some solar panels and something that can cook, that you can cook with, like let's say like an induction burner or a little electric burner that you can plug into a solar panel and battery setup. In general, that's what I would recommend people have. And it doesn't have to get that complicated. If you have a big house, a lot of space, and you're off the grid, even better. But at a minimum, hand crank radio, water, food, flashlight, maybe some solar panels, and something to cook with. That's what I would recommend. Could Atlas have shut down Mars pictures? No, we have some pictures now from Mars. We have this guy right here, right from ESA released today. So thank you for super thanks. Art of Meta. Tell us about the dream of the volcano, please. At this point, I kind of want to wrap up. I want to get through these and wrap up. So maybe another time. But basically, I had a dream of a massive volcanic eruption. It's quite interesting. I think it was in Italy, but just a dream. Thankfully, and the shockwave was coming towards us, but then at the last moment, it kind of swept to the side. So that was a good thing. It was really epic to see. But that's effectively the dream. Please study CASPA. Central banks hold us down. Yeah, CASPA is a proof of work cryptocurrency, a very short block time. They're interesting. Launched in 2020 or recently, I think. So I've looked into them. I don't have any. Thank you for super thanks, though. You think we must be prepared for the storm? No, I think in general we're going to be fine. Be prepared if you want to see aurora. If you want to watch aurora happening, then yeah, make sure you're prepared for this. But in terms of like there being power grid failures, I think we're probably fine. I don't think we're going to have power grid failures from this solar shock wave coming in. Thanks for everything. Well, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Una, for the super sticker. I recognize you. Thank you so much. Queen Aruzli, thank you so much. Psychic Mama, we appreciate you being here. Bart Baker, do you think there is a possible correlation between the anti-tail pointing at the sun and the solar flare that shot back directly towards it? Yeah, this would speak to electric circuit dynamic that exists within our solar system, which most mainstream heliophysicists have really not spent any time exploring, thinking about, thought experimenting with, whatever. But we have a lot of observational evidence exist. So yeah, if you have this push of plasma out in the direction of the sun, and then the sun is launching coronal mass ejection your way, that right towards it, that's kind of speaking to there being some sort of enhanced flow and gradient of energy, probably electric field. It's probably the electric field having a stronger gradient that is just in general pulling more energy along it than the reduced gradient to the sides of it. So yeah, there's definitely a connection. Thoughts on wearing gold and silver? I think those are good for you. I think they help ground and stabilize the body. The more you wear, the better it is. Thank you for super thanks, Renee, and also, of course, Linda. And last question here, or last super thanks, John White. So thank you so much. So that's the live stream today. Thank you all for joining in today. And while I was in that tab, I did not see any of the comments that came in. So I'm sorry for not being there for that. But I have a separate tab for the super thanks comments. But yeah, glad that you're all here today. Thank you to the moderators for being in the live stream and helping to keep everyone happy and to reduce the spam and some of the stuff that just doesn't serve anybody, just detracts from everything. And I'll be back with more videos as needed with the solar storm or earthquakes or more. So please subscribe to the channel, and let's check our latest earthquakes, see if there's been anything crazy since I've been talking. Don't think there has been. No, still the same level and state. So there's one more question here. This is interesting. I lost it now, but the question was, do you think 3i Atlas came from a wormhole? No idea, maybe. That's the thing. We have no way of saying yes or no to that. It's interesting to think about, but we have no way of saying yes or no to that. And then I think, yeah. So I recognize a lot of you in the live stream. So thanks for being long-term supporters and viewers. We passed 500,000 subscribers. Now we're on the road to whatever the next number is. At this point, I think I'm going to stop tracking it. It's just what happens, happens. So, but we hit a big milestone just in the past couple of days, thanks to all of your support. So sending you all lots of love and light. Please take care of yourselves. I'm wishing all of you the best at all times. Together as a community, we're always resonating brighter and stronger, and that's the direction we're going to keep going, towards inspiration, hope, and positivity. And it's time to set aside old programming of doubt and fear and limitation and more. It's time to upgrade. 2025, 2026, that's what it's all about. Year of the snake. We are shedding the skin. So that is the journey for this fall, this October. Veil us in. Now is the time to do it. We have this coming up with the high-speed stream impact in about 4 or 5 days. I'll keep you up to date on all this and more. Thank you so much. Wishing you well. Have a great day.